Hello, everybody. This is Jason with another episode of Inked Up Runner. Tonight, I am getting to speak with. She is besides running, which she has done a whole lot of, and done some really hard stuff. It's not every day you get to meet somebody who took an idea and was able to build it. And I'm talking about Jessica Vandenbush. She created a magazine called Eat Clean, Run Dirty. If you've not checked it out, it's pretty cool. It's it focuses on runner stories and rate in different races and different aspects that you may not see in your standard magazine. So thank you for joining me, Jessica. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. It is an honor and a pleasure. Thank you.
So she's actually, we're speaking to her live from she's actually at Cocodona, where she's an aid station captain out there. So she's going to be helping these folks who were crazy enough to run 250 miles,
Yeah.
help them survive something of this magnitude. So I guess before we get started, you've done a lot of hard stuff. Do you ever want to do a 200 miler?
Actually, yes. So a big 200-mile race that I would really like to do is called the Tour de Jean, and it is in Italy. However, the Cocodona 250 thanks its aid station captains by giving them race credit. And so this is my second year being an aid station captain for them. And at the end of my duty, I will have enough credit to sign up for this race next year. I'm not sure that is what I want my fate to be, but it is such a beautiful course. It certainly is something to consider. Yeah.
Well, it's not like running in Italy. I believe his name is Jeff Peltier. He did Tour de France and did a video on it, and I was blown away by that course. And it's just like, holy cow. I would never finish it. I'd be too busy drooling over all the views and taking pictures and videos of all the cool stuff that you would see while you're out there. But I guess before we get into the whole 200-mile, thing for you, how did you, when you think about running and getting into what we do, which is ultra running, it's not like something that just an average person does, right? I mean, no one says to themselves, I want to go out and run 50 miles today, or hell, let me go out and run 100 miles a day, because it's just not normal, right? So how did you have the basic runner story where you started out with like a 5K and then built up into the bigger distances, or did you just start out hard and just start straight up running the higher distances?
Right. So, well, I don't think any of us have a basic story, right? None of us do. And I do want to say too on that, average people do amazing things all the time. And everybody's invited to this party. That's the special thing about it. When I think about how I first got into running or this sport, if you it's a whole nother thing, right?
Right.
I think about it's really about being outside for me. And I grew up getting outside in Wisconsin, going camping and fishing with my family, and they'd let me run off on my own, and I'd go exploring trails and things like that. So when I finally found trail running and running in general in my 30s, I was in track in school, I was in track and cross country a little bit, in middle school and high school, but I didn't run after that for a really long time. And in my 30s, I did a little mixed martial arts and started getting into fitness that way. And we did running for warm-ups, and that got me into, trying a 5K. And then signing up for a 10K. And in training for that, I saw people like running through the forest. And I was like, oh my goodness, like it never occurred to me that you could run there. I don't know why, but it just never occurred to me. And since then, and I started trail running, to me, it feels like I'm walking myself home. Like it feels like I'm where I should be. I'm back, like in those woods, like I was when I was a little girl. Like it's about being outside for me and being on my own, or among friends, but it's that. So trail running felt like coming home, when I was so far from home. And yeah, it went from, I signed up for a marathon. Well, I signed up for a half K or half marathon, and then a marathon, and I started running around these ruffians, right? Like these trail running people in Ohio, and they'd talk about 50Ks and whatever. And I looked up a 50K, and I saw the longest run leading up to a 50K was a marathon. And so I found a 50K that was 3 weeks after my first marathon. And so I just knocked them both out in the same month like that. And then I got invited to a film festival by the trail running group I would hang out with. And I didn't know then, but it was James Varner's Trails in Motion, like it's traveling film festival. And they came to an independent theater in Cleveland when I lived there. And I went and I saw this film about Orcas Island 100. And I didn't even know that there were 100-mile races, let alone through the mountains. And sitting there in the theater that day, I knew that I wanted to be a 100-mile mountain runner. And I didn't know how exactly I was going to do it, but I knew that that's what I wanted to do with my life, and that I was going to find a way to make it happen. And that's how I found out about this sport. It was like literally like community, and getting invited to something like that after a group run. Like it was, I kind of found this whole thing on accident, and it's really influenced me quite substantially, I'd say.
Yeah, I think you hit on the first thing you hit on was pretty big when you talked about there is really no average runner when you think about it, because out of everything that I've done with running, the most rewarding thing I've ever done is more than any race is I pace a half marathon every year here locally.
Yeah.
And watching these people run these races, helping them achieve their goals, and then watching them cross the finish line is far more rewarding than any finish that I've had. And I truly mean that too, because like the first year I did it, I got finished running it, and this lady walked up to me and she said, just so you know, she said, you helped me PR that by 3 minutes. And I'm thinking, I said, no, I said, you did it on your own. She goes, but you kept me moving. And I was like, that was really impactful to me, because like, it's so funny because we all have different goals, right? And
Mm-hmm.
one person's goal may be 100 miles, which is a lot, but then another person's 100-mile race may be a half marathon, and that's the beauty of running and what we do. And I think what you said was spot on, how you let off there. And
You're never the same person twice, right? Like hopefully the person that you were yesterday is gone. You've destroyed them by becoming the person you are today. And the distance or the trail or the terrain, especially for people who ran the same race more than once, it's a different thing every time you show up. And I'm really impressed and inspired by people who dare to try. And that could be any distance or any time, or these people who came back to running after a long time of not doing that, or people that are trying something new, just daring to start. That impresses me. And I love all of those people within that, right?
right, I think like you said, just getting out and doing it is huge in itself, because a lot of people don't even bother to try. And
They
then
don't try.
they
Yeah.
don't even try. And then the ones that do, whether it's a 5K, which in my opinion is the hardest race you can run if you're racing it. It's a 5K.
Oh, it hurts. It hurts. 5Ks are awful. It
Oh, they're
burns the
terrible.
whole time.
They go,
Yeah.
I mean, because you go balls out, right? And you're hoping to get like a really fast finish, and then like after like a mile and a half, I mean, you're like, no, this sucks. I mean, put me on a trail where I can just, you know, take it easy and see some mountains and stuff. But I think
They're all hard though. All those distances are hard. It's just on how you apply yourself.
exactly, absolutely. And so you said you started out in that, and you got involved in the Ohio area. So did you, because looking at your ultra sign up, you really do a whole lot of stuff. That was the cool thing about talking with Jeff Browning. Was Jeff Browning, he may be on the West Coast, but he does he's very much active here on the East Coast with, he's done all sorts of races here, on the East Coast, and you're kind of all over the place. I mean, you're in the Midwest, you're out West, you're on the East side here. How did you, did you just like go into ultra sign up and just start just Google, just like looking up races and just like, I want to try this one because it sounds cool? I mean, how do you go about picking your races? Because just looking at them, I mean, you're all over the place.
Yeah. So I would say that one of the reasons I like running is, the adventure of it. Like, I love travel. I love getting to know different types of people. I like food. I like, the discovery of it, like a new place. And so when I'm looking at where I want to go run, it's where do I want to go see? And I get to see it on my own 2 feet. Like, what kind of country do I want to get into? So I look at it that way. I also look at it around community. And while there's amazing races everywhere, that kind of the more you do, the more like your world gets a little bit smaller, like I'll go out and I'll have met people at the Georgia Death Race that are also doing Bighorn. And so I'll meet up with them at that other race. And, there's a lot of us that travel. And that's one of my favorite things too, is like traveling with my friends to like go to races. Like, I love doing that. And so, looking at it of, well, if you're going to run something, it might as well be in the Canadian Rockies or, something like that. It's a cool way to see the world. And so that's part of it. Also, like, I learn about races, I think like a lot of us do, just running alongside other people and talking and, telling stories of the races that they've done, and hearing how amazing that is, and trying out things just from that, like talking about it, fellowship and mentorship. And that's inspired me for some of the races I've signed up for. And honestly, so is the Hard Rock qualifier list has inspired some of my races, because I want to do Hard Rock someday. And that list in itself is a beautiful list of races that are special in their own right. And so I'm kind of using the Hard Rock qualifier list as basically passport punches on my runner card, and going around trying those out, but not as a means to a different end, but because I'll probably never get into Hard Rock, but as a way to find beautiful communities of runners just kind of all over the place. And I also like to do hard things, and so I guess some of the races I pick are like that because they scare the hell out of me.
I mean, you've ran GDR, and that one's no joke all in itself, right? I mean, GDR is extremely tough. It's a very hard race. I think you mentioned it, but I think what's funny is Jeff Browning was saying that he wants to get 10 Hard Rock finishers, and he may retire from Hard Rock so somebody else can get in. So if you see him, you can always just say, "Hey, Jeff,
I'm waiting for you to drop out of this."
You need to drop off the list, because actually I heard that that's really kind of how you get in, that people are just the same people just kind of get in like every single year,
Yeah.
unless you're like Killian and you can just say, hey, can I get in? And they're like, yeah, you can get in because you're Killian. But
No, so part of, I mean, if you could do a whole show just on how to get into Hard Rock, and the way that their lottery works. And the lottery, for the people who've never ran it, it's called the Never Lottery, but both because you're probably never going to get in, but it's a lottery for the people who've never ran it before. And they only have 42 slots available for the never people. And that's like 2,000 people sign up for that race or for that never lottery, and they only pick 42 people. So the odds are not good for me to get in someday. But there's a lot of old guys who run that race, and so hopefully they'll retire eventually, and that'll make room for me.
that's right. You need to tell Jeff he needs to lay off of it and let you in. But so when you really think about, you talk about liking to do hard stuff. I remember looking at like no business is not a very easy race. A friend of mine ran no business, and he talked about it, and that one's here local in Tennessee, and that's
That's a gorgeous race. That's a
yeah,
beautiful race. I recommend it to anybody.
and actually
Very well run.
And there's a 50K race that runs on that one too, called Yamakra, and I've ran it. I've never ran the 100-miler there. There's actually a guy running Cocodona who ran the no business twice in a row last year. He ran it, and he started it and ran it again, which is pretty cool. But
that is cool.
But anyway, so just looking at that, when you have, I noticed you made a post about a bucket list of races, and do you remember your bucket list of races?
Well, my actual bucket list of races is like 20 long. I'm not sure what post that was. I know that that Fat Dog 120 is on that list. I know that Hard Rock is on that list. I will do Orcas Island every single year. That's always on that list. Yeah, I mean, those are a few of them.
Yeah, and what is it in the Fat Dog 120? I'm not real familiar with that, and I see you're signed up for it. So what is it about Fat Dog that makes you really want to run that one?
So it's in Canada, which it'll be my first race in Canada. It's in the Canadian Rockies. It's in Manning Park, which is not far from Banff. So first off, just majestic, beautiful wilderness, rugged. It is extremely rugged terrain. The other thing, it's 120 miles, so I've never done a 120-mile race before. The other thing about it is that there's as much as 17 miles between aid stations. There's grizzly bears, there's electrical storms, there's evacuation routes in case of avalanches. Like, there's a lot of serious things that go into making the puzzle that is Fat Dog 120. It's hard, and it'll definitely be the hardest thing I've set out to do race wise this August. And I'm just really excited to kind of see what I'm working with, see what I'm made out of out there. And that's a good place to find that out.
So what's the cutoff for that, for something like that?
I think the cutoff is 42 hours, 45 hours, but I could be mistaken. I'm hoping it won't take me that long. I honestly haven't looked.
Wow, that's actually a little bit, I would have thought it might be a little bit longer. It sounds pretty tough. I know that, I know Hellbender and Cruel Jewel have some pretty long cutoff times here.
Yeah.
And they're just 100-milers. So I couldn't imagine doing 120, especially on a tough course like that, Plus, I mean, the grizzly bears all alone would scare the hell out of me, so.
The grizzles, yeah. Yeah, you definitely have to run this one with some bear spray on your belt. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I guess, that's the thing is, um, when you're what's funny is you hear about stuff like that, but you rarely actually see wildlife on any of those races. At least
Oh yeah, you do. Maybe
so
you haven't.
I
I have.
haven't. You've seen a lot of bears?
Um, Brandon.
Hold on a second. Hold on. Are you there?
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Yeah,
This
I
is better.
I have like a really bad storm going on outside, so I'm not sure if that's like affecting this. So
No, I'm sorry. Yeah.
no. So anyway, so that we were talking about the wildlife. So you see a whole lot out there.
I was stalked by a mountain lion at Bighorn.
What the hell?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not fun.
Yeah, no, it's scary. I thought I was gonna die. It was terrible. And I've seen moose. I've not seen a bear in a race. I've seen bear on a long run, but there's definitely a very, very likely chance that I'm going to see a grizzly bear at this race in Canada. Yeah,
Oh,
they're very active in this area.
that would scare the hell out of me. But it would be fun to see, though, I guess from afar, right? So, but
Hopefully, hopefully they're far away.
hopefully they're far away. Yeah, I remember there's a guy called the Real Hiking Viking. I don't know if you've ever heard of him,
Uh, yeah,
but he talked about how he was going to get some water at a water cache on a hike, and he came like within like maybe 10 yards of a real grizzly bear, and like they physically had a standoff, like
yeah.
just standoff right there. And finally the bear went away, obviously, because he was alive and was able to talk about it. But I mean, I couldn't imagine that. That would just be
You
like,
got to watch out. And they're different from those bears in Pennsylvania or West Virginia. Like, you can't just clap at them and they'll run off. Grizzly bears are pissed all the time. They will rip your face off. So it's a whole different scene out west with the wildlife for sure. And that's part of the puzzle, and part of doing all these really cool races everywhere is you need to learn about the flora and fauna of where you're running as part of your personal responsibility to sign up for these races and doing hard things. You got to learn about rattlesnakes, or you've got to learn about what weird lizards there are, or kind of what are the dangers and what to kind of handle yourself responsibly, I would say.
well, absolutely. And in a race like that, where you got long distances in between aid stations, I mean, you have to kind of know going into it how to be responsible with aid and the wildlife around you, and this and just the whole scene, because you don't know what you're going to run into. It's just like here on the East Coast. I'm sure you've heard of Scar. Um,
Mm-hmm.
there's only like 2 access points for like aid. So, going into that, you have to be able to be self-sufficient for 40
Yep.
miles or 30 miles, and then be self-sufficient the other part without somebody helping you. And so those are definitely things that you have to think about. So, but I think one of the really cool things that you do is your magazine. And what was your inspiration around Eat Clean, Run Dirty?
Well, thank you. Um, Basically, I really like magazines. I think magazines are cool. Um, I read some of them, not running magazines, but I read magazines and tear out pictures in them, and think about the places I want to go and read the stories. And finally, one day I was at the bookstore looking at magazines and the running ones, and none of them were about the stuff me or my friends do. None of them were really about the community that I knew. All the running magazines I saw on the newsstands were either about how to lose weight to run faster, about the elite athletes running these, big road marathons, or about tips for stretching, or about like the same five people that live in Colorado or California.
Hmm.
And I'm sorry, but that's all very boring to me. Good for them. Like, I'm not like pooping on, these other magazines at all, but it's not what interests me. And so it was kind of a thing where um I thought that we deserved a magazine about the stuff we do and the people we meet and the stories of the races we like. And I was kind of like, well, I guess if nobody else is going to do it, I'm going to have to. And so I did. I made the magazine I wish somebody else would have made.
So when you think about that, like, and you say it so easily, like, I made the magazine that I wish everyone else would have made, like it was like something that's like, I just went to the refrigerator and got some water out of it. But that's some hard, that's some hard stuff. Like, did you
Yeah.
have like some sort of print background, or like, obviously you have some media background, um, just in just following you on social media. You have some sort of media background, but like from a print standpoint, like, did you have like some sort of background in putting together like a print type, you know um like, what did that, I mean, how hard was that? I mean, I don't even know what you would do to start a magazine.
So to be clear, I have no media background at all. No. The answer to that is definitely, it's a hard no. I have no background in any of that stuff. I started a podcast in 2015 by just figuring it out. And I like everything I've done in my life has been, this is what I want to do. It's probably against all odds, but I'm going to just figure out how to do it. No, like that's not my background at all. And so starting this magazine, I didn't even have Wi-Fi. Like I would have to go to like the parking lot of a Dunkin' Donuts and like download pictures using their free Wi-Fi. Like I didn't even have the internet. Everything about this was hard. Everything was hard. And I had to figure everything out as I went along. It's a very public education. And for people who've been around since the beginning of, I had an issue 0 where I had to figure out like not only just formatting things, like I've never taken a computer class in my life, let alone a design class, or to know how to get things printed. Everything has been hard earned with this magazine. And from issue 0 to issue 6, which you'll get to see at Hellbender, all the runners of Hellbender are getting an issue. So hopefully you'll be able to see it. It's come a long way, but my education of being an editor, of being a photographer, a designer, somebody in publication, like that has been like everybody's watched it, right? Like everybody's seen my spelling error, everybody's seen how the pages weren't numbered right, everybody's seen, you know, all of it. And it's quite vulnerable. It's quite vulnerable. But I can't help it. Like I had to do it anyway. It's like something inside of me. Like I just had to get it out. And more than that, um, if you read the magazine, it's not about me at all. It's about our community. And I felt so strongly that these stories deserve to be told. And these like these races, especially East Coast races, and the runners and the communities around it, they deserved to be in a beautiful magazine. And so I believe that so much I'm willing to look like a fool messing it up along the way, to try and give them the magazine they deserve. Yeah.
Well, I would have to say, I think that is pretty amazing from the standpoint of, like, it's hard to do any of this stuff that you mentioned, right? It's hard to start a podcast.
Yeah.
It's even harder to start a magazine. And
Yeah.
it's just like when I started this, obviously I'm still learning, because I need to learn not to do an episode in a raging storm outside with with big ass winds. But anyway. But it's like when you want something bad enough and you go after it,
Mhm.
then I think it's really rewarding to see the results of that. And I'm sure you had to be so proud of the fact that you were able to put together something like this. And and the stories, they're put together so well. And you would not know from reading in the magazine that you weren't, that you didn't have some sort of media background, because of just, I mean, I would not have known. I mean, I'm you know I think it's impressive, and I think it's great what you're doing, because you're right. Like, no offense to Runner's World magazine, but how many issues do I need a shoe buying guide of? You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
every other
It's a big
issue.
commercial.
Right. Every other issue is like the top 10 trail running shoes, the top 5 road running shoes, the top 5
Yeah.
road running shoes that start with a B. It's like, I mean, it's crazy. And there's nothing wrong with Runner's World at all. But it's good to have issues where it's focused on, every single person and not the same people. Because look, that's one reason why I started this YouTube channel. Was initially I started out with interviewing just local runners here in the mid.
Mhm.
I'm in Middle Tennessee, people that you may not have heard of, but do hard stuff. Right. I interviewed a lady
Mhm.
who is a horse. Uh, she's a horse veterinarian, and she runs ultras and I thought that was really impressive. And we're talking like GDR and like, like the hard stuff, right? And it was really cool talking to her and getting to know her and hearing her running story, because these are the people who you don't hear about. You hear about all the big people all the time, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it's always good to hear about the people, like you said, that some of the East Coast people that you may not have heard of as much. Or um, and I think that's really, really, cool to put, those type of folks in the spotlight, so to speak. And it's just really awesome. So, you know, when you had to pick out the paper, you had to go to the printing press and all that kind of stuff, you know, how hard was that to learn? I mean, did you have to, like, I'm sorry, I'm still trying to wrap my head around the whole magazine thing of trying to start one. But like, did you have any, like, did you like just go on and Google how to start a magazine, and and that's how you learned how to find somebody to print and publish it? Or how did that work?
Right. Well, I went to the store and I bought a bunch of my favorite magazines, and I looked in the inside cover and saw like the 25 to 50 people that had their names on the inside cover and what their jobs were. And then I looked up what that person's job was. Like, I dissected it. What is an editor? What is an editor in chief? What's the difference between those two? What is, like, I looked up what all those different jobs were and what job descriptions came with those kind of jobs. And that's how I knew what my to-do list was,
And so
which is
it,
incredibly huge, by the
it,
way.
and so just for people listening who don't know much, maybe don't know about the magazine, is it just a one-man show? How many, do you have like a staff, or what does that look like for you?
So, there is a gentleman named Zach who got into running and found the podcast, and he actually just graduated. He volunteered to spell check the articles. So Zach from issue 2 has been checking the pages for grammar mistakes, and everything else has been me.
Wow, that's crazy. So how much time does it take you to put together one issue?
I do want to add with this, obviously I don't write all the articles. I've only written one actual article for the magazine. The articles and pictures and things like that are things that people contribute. So I'm curating content for the magazine. Sometimes I like I am picking what the theme of the magazine, what the overall message should be, but I'm not writing all the stories in the magazine. It's a collection of work from people across running, both like elite, like really fast runners that have big heart, to maybe somebody who's not even a runner but they're a part of the running community. Recently I've started to want to give assignments out because there's stories that I really want to be told. And so with issue 5, there's a gentleman named Chad Sullivan who was out of Illinois. He let me give him a writing assignment. And this next issue 6, there's another article where I've given him a writing assignment. So I would say I have a staff writer in Chad. So I just want to like put an asterisk on. I do everything myself. I don't write all the articles myself. But I shape them and curate them and put out a call for action about them. I don't want anybody to, if they get the magazine, I don't want them to think it's a bunch of stuff about Jess, because it's not about me at all. And it's the opposite of what vibe I'm trying to go on. It's not about me.
No.
But it takes quite a long time to put everything together. It's exhausting. Like I have every minute of my day is accounted for. I work constantly. So, it's not easy. But I want to say about this, and about maybe somebody listening to this or thinking about starting their own thing. You know, I saw something that I wanted to do, and it was going to be very hard, but I committed myself to doing it. And that is a lesson that I learned in trail and ultra running. As I picked a distance, or I picked a race, I don't know how I'm going to get to that finish line, but I'm going to give everything I can to being a student of how to get there, and then I'm going to get there. And so I don't think that without trail and ultra running, I would have been able to start the things that I have outside of that. Like I am doing this work with the lessons that I've learned in it. Despite not having a perfect runner physique, despite not having all the time in the world that I need to do it, or the tools, or even Wi-Fi, or anything like that. I have no background in that. I didn't go to school to be a writer or a publisher or anything like that. I did not have that background or grew up that way. And so I'm doing it anyway, though. And I want people listening to this to think, whatever it is that you're wanting to do, and you have all these reasons that you shouldn't be able to do it anyway. And, find a way to get there, make it happen. And you'll learn from that experience, and you'll be able to do the next thing too.
That's very well put. And I think until you just like put yourself out there, you don't know really what you're capable of doing, and just putting forth that effort of just trying and seeing what can happen. It's amazing what you can do when you try, because I had no idea how to edit videos or do any of this. And I've kind of been self-taught myself to do it, and still have a lot to
Yeah.
learn, but it's getting there. But I
It's the
think,
value of doing hard things, right? Like when you set out to do a hard thing, especially things that are uncertain, you don't know how they'll go or how they'll end. You get to learn what you're working with. And by that, I mean, you get to learn what you're made out of, and you get to meet yourself in it. And that's the beauty of it.
oh, absolutely. And I think, I learned very early on. I got hooked up with Bob Hearn, who Bob set the record for Ball State this past year.
Hmm.
And I got hooked up with him. And so early on, I wasn't using Zoom, and I was using Skype. And I interviewed Bob, and somewhere around sometime during that episode, the video screwed up, right? And it took me literally like 3 or 4 days to figure out how to get that video to work, just so I could put it out there. And it was one of the most rewarding things, because, like you said, and I think you hit on it pretty big, about not giving up and trying, and, just putting yourself out there to try, and really, you can really amaze yourself by just really just taking the time to believe in yourself to get it done. And that's what I did. Basically, I just looked stuff up, and I played around, and I finally just figured out how to get it done, which was cool. But like, like I think you're right with trail and ultra running. It taught me the same thing, because I don't know if I would have the same resilience if it wasn't for trail and ultra running. So I think that's a very big thing there. And I think, when you're talking about kind of big things, you kind of are doing another big thing, media related, and you're making I guess you could say a short film. What would you call it?
Oh, I'm making a documentary film. Yes.
So a big film.
Um, it will be probably about 45 minutes long.
That's long. So yes. So that's
We can't have it be any longer than that, because I want it to be able to be at a festival. So it'll be between 30 and 45 minutes, but it's going to be a documentary movie. Yeah.
So talk about what that is, because because I have to tell you how I first learned about you was
Yeah.
your podcast years ago.
Okay.
And so when I was looking up at podcast, I typed in ultra running podcast, and yours popped up. And of course, the old East Coast Trail and Ultra podcast where Ryan and Sean popped up, and of course,
Uh-huh.
the Ginger Runner's always at the top, right? And but like, yours popped up, and so that's how I thought about you with the whole media thing. But now, you're doing this documentary film. So talk about, have you always had a passion for like film, and what is this about? I mean,
Right. um yeah, it's a holy crap moment. It's kind of like signing up for a real big race. Like, how am I going to do this? I've always well, first of all, let's not pretend I don't even have a TV. I don't watch TV. I don't have time to watch other people doing things. I do like movies from time to time. Sometimes they're documentary movies, but really, I'm like a Quentin Tarantino fan. I like Wes Anderson movies. I like Hitchcock movies. I like old westerns. I like some movies, and I have time to watch maybe 4 a year.
wow.
Um, I don't even have a couch. Like I don't sit down. So just to level set on, Jessica's free time is definitely not spent watching stuff on a screen. However, I kind of always when you hear music, I think, oh, like I see a sequence in a movie or something like that. So along my journey of being a runner, of interviewing people for the podcast, of telling stories in the magazine, it doesn't take long to figure out when you're standing around the starting line of a 100-mile race that it is a sausage party. There are 80% men, 20% women at most 100-mile races. And the harder you get, the less women there are. And so I'm kind of, like, well, where are the ladies and why aren't they out here with me? And, so through that journey of figuring out, like, why is there a gender gap? In a lot of 50Ks, especially 50Ks on the East Coast, it's 50-50. But the longer distance you get, you see less female participation. And why is that? So I've been curious about it, and I've asked a lot of women about the reasons why they're not out there. And just, I think that the answer, because what I want to do is I want to recruit. I want to encourage women to get out there. And so there's a lot of ways you can do that. Sure, there's like policy things, or there's like ladies only groups, or, there's all these people doing all kinds of stuff. That's not for me. I want to recruit women to the distance through storytelling and representation. And so like, how best to do that? Through telling the story of women who are already doing it, and what things are they overcoming to accomplish those, to get to that starting line. Nobody doing it, it's not easy. It's not easy for any of the men there. It's not easy for any of the women there. We're all like going through stuff to make it happen, to train and to get to that race. And so telling the stories of the women who are overcoming it and starting these races, I think, is the way to do it. Hopefully a woman who is not there yet will see this, that story and think, oh, she can, so can I. I hope that she will feel seen through storytelling. Anyway, it's something I call the 20% project. And there's stories in the magazine that sometimes overtly are called the 20% project. Sometimes I just don't mention it. It just happens to be females telling the story. And I do it as not a big deal. So I picked a runner that really inspires me. Her name's Nettie. She's from Cincinnati. And I ran my first 100-mile race with Nettie and met her that way. And she does group runs, and she's a race director, and she's a mom, and she didn't start running until later in her life either. She trains for crazy mountain races by running up and down a dam in Ohio. And she's tough as hell and very inspiring. And it's not easy for her to do what she does, but she does it anyway. And she's also a Polish immigrant. And so I want to tell the story about Nettie and about her running and her family and what she overcomes to start these races. And I pitched the idea to Fujifilm. They were giving away a grant, and I won. I won the grant. And so I have all this equipment and all these resources. And I got a phone call at like 10 p.m. on a Tuesday night from Fuji executives saying I won this grant, and they wanted my team on the call the next day. And I had this oh crap moment because I didn't have a team. And I had to reach out to some people and say, hey, originally on the application, they asked me like who my mentors would be if I needed help, because I've never made a movie before. And so I listed a couple of names. So then they wanted this big call with my team. And so I had to quick call these people and be like, hey, we're making a movie, and I think it's way more involved than I originally thought. And like, do you want to make this movie with me? And so they said, darn right I do. And so it's me and a team of 5 other people who I know through running, and we're making a documentary movie about my friend Nettie. And it's pretty darn cool. I'm really excited. And I have no idea what I'm doing, to be clear. No idea what I'm doing, but I'm going to figure it out as I go and hopefully do Nettie and women justice.
So how long do you have to make this documentary? What's your time frame?
So the film is due to Fujifilm on August 30th. And so today is May 2nd. Nettie is a race director. She has a race in Cincinnati, Ohio area called the Night Owl Marathon. That is later this month in May. I think it's in 2 weeks from now. So me and my film crew are flying out to Nettie's house, and we're living in her basement, and we're going to film Nettie and her family out there. And then Nettie just so happens to be running Western States. So we're following Nettie to Western States and filming her out there. And yeah, we're gonna make a movie telling her story through that stuff. And somewhere in there, I'm training for Fat Dog, because Fat Dog is like August 5th. And so I'll be filming and editing and trying to train and delivering this picture on time by August 30th. So hopefully everybody will be able to see it in September.
Not to mention you have a magazine too, so you have a few things going
Oh
on.
yeah.
So
Yeah, there's some stuff going, and I have a job. To be clear, none of these things pay me any money, and I have a full-time job, and I am not a rich person at all. And so, like, literally, I live on scrambled eggs and work constantly because I just believe in it so much.
that's cool though, because it's your passion, right? And I think that's and I think when I think that, when you talk about doing what you want to do, it is pretty cool making a movie. Like, I wouldn't even know where to start to do something like that. And I can tell you, I get frustrated as hell using Final Cut Pro to edit when I do the live interviews, because I do live interviews with people locally.
Yeah.
And like I had to I was interviewing a guy the other day, and there was an issue with the sound, where there was a clip that popped in that was a black screen, and it screwed up everything. And it took me literally hours to figure out how to get that one thing clipped out, and just to find it, because there's so many frames in a video.
Yeah.
You have no idea how many frames are in a video, people, until you start actually editing the video. And then you're
Yes.
like, what the hell? I couldn't even imagine doing like a real movie. So that's crazy. That's amazing. But I think what's bigger is telling the story of that gender gap, right? Because
Yeah.
we have seen a huge influx of some really strong female runners though, right? We have Courtney, who goes out and competes very heavily and wins against males. And there's you can't have a conversation about strong female runners without talking about Camille, who goes out and torches, sets records and does lots of cool stuff. But I think what you're hitting on is just the non-Courtneys, the non-Camilles, just the regular person who doesn't want to go out and torch the course, but should just go out and try something hard and not be intimidated.
Oh, well, I'm gonna stop you right there. There's nothing regular about Nettie, and there's nothing regular about any of the women who sign up for these races. Nettie is badass, and she does this all while being a wife and a mom and having a job and being a race director. Nobody's paying her to run twice a day in the mountains. No, she's doing it anyway, and she's finding a way. And to me, Nettie's story is more inspiring than some of those other very talented women, because she's doing it anyway, despite the circumstances not being ideal. And to me, that is inspiring.
Oh, absolutely. And I wouldn't trying to downplay her as being
I
average.
know.
I think what I was saying was, the non-elite. I just
Yeah.
didn't say it very well, because it is hard, and it's intimidating for me to sign up for a 100-miler. I still yet to finish one. I've DNF'd 4 now, so
Oh,
I think
geez.
I'm going to set a record for the most DNFs. So, but anyway, so as you're making this, are you going to be putting like little clips to share on Instagram or anything like that? Or are you just going to put, like, is there going to be like a journey where people can follow you on this? Or
I don't know. You're the first person to ask me that. Is that like, do people want to follow along with this? I kind of I joked to a friend that you ever see that This Is Spinal Tap?
Yes.
Like there should be a movie about us making this movie because like that's a thing in itself. Um, it's crazy. Like um, I don't know how we're all gonna get it done. It's gonna be really hard. Um, there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of ambiguity that we're managing here, and a little bit of shooting from the hip, you know. I'm terrible with social media. Um, I I don't know, like we probably should have somewhere where people can follow along at least on this process, as especially after we start filming. Yeah, I'm out here at Cocodona running this aid station, and I'm taking pictures and practicing using my camera equipment. And I'm gonna take some portraits of people at my aid station and maybe put together a couple of cheesy practice videos, just so doing the movie is not my first thing I've ever done on film. That would probably be a good idea. um but uh yeah, we should have some kind of social media thing as we're going along.
See
Maybe
what
we could use some a volunteer for this. We need a social media volunteer as
See,
part of the movie team.
what you do is you just do what every good manager does, is you take one of your five people and you deem them your social media person, and
Yeah,
you know, have them post something here and there for you. But anyway, that's really cool. And you know, I know somebody like myself would like to follow, you know, when I mention that, is I follow along on
yeah,
all the time. Like if somebody's making something, like I will typically like see where they're doing, you know, where they are along in their journey of making,
yeah.
where regardless of what it is. I'm just one of those people, but that's why I asked. But
That's a good idea. I should do like behind the scenes stuff of making the movie, and probably oh no, here we go. Probably of doing what do you want to call it? Here we go. Hang on. There. Is that better? You probably can hear me back now.
yeah,
I should do behind the scenes of the magazine and of the movie so people kind of know what's going on in the background.
that's what you got to do. You got to have the hype train, is what I call it, and that's what you got to do. You gotta do the hype train, because where I work at, we always joke that there's people that will hype up other people to get them all mad about something. And so that's what you
Yeah.
do your video. You got to hype up the video to get people to want to check it out and see it. So, but anyway, it's really
See,
cool.
and that's a tough thing. I'm like such a reluctant salesperson. It's like so weird. Like I spend every minute I have putting these things together, and then I'm kind of like, oh, here it is, you know, I guess check it out. Like I'm such a bad salesperson. Oh my goodness.
Oh, I am
Oh,
too.
I gotta, yeah, I gotta try harder. Because
Yeah.
I would like people to watch the movie. I want people to see it. I want people to see this magazine. I work so hard on it, and it's so special. And every issue, I'm always so proud of it, and can't wait for folks to see it. And then I'm just kind of like, oh yeah, I guess check it out. It's so
Here
weird.
it is. Right.
Yeah.
Well, 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 this is all just really great stuff, and it's been awesome talking with you. And I don't want to chew up any more of your time, because you've got, like, I'm sure you've got plenty to do. And so
Have you heard while we've been talking? Have you heard popping in the background?
yes.
So I bought a whole bunch of those Pillsbury biscuits in the tube that are
Mhm.
at the from the grocery store. And I'm making homemade donuts with them at the aid station, where you like cut them into four each biscuit and like deep fry them. And then you put them in a paper bag with powdered sugar. You shake it up, and they're like fresh donuts.
Uh-huh.
And while we've been sitting here, my tubes of biscuits keep popping behind me in the background. So there's like biscuits everywhere in my car.
Oh
So
no.
after we're done, I have to like do biscuit patrol.
Oh wow. Well, then we definitely need to end it on that note, because the biscuits are far more important than this. So on that note,
Yeah.
we will end this one with Jessica. If you've not checked out her magazine, definitely look her up. It's great. And then, she's going to get the hype train choo-chooing
Yes,
for the video. um, I will personally remind her where is the updates.
please.
So anyway, thank you again, Jessica. I know you're super busy and you got a ton going on, and I just really appreciate it. I always appreciate
Oh,
anybody talking with me. Period. It makes
oh
it means
no,
it
don't.
means a lot to
It's
me.
an honor. It's an honor. I'm quite flattered to be asked to be on your show. It's a big deal to me. Just know that. It is a really big deal to be able to talk about my work and talk to your audience, and like thank you for all that you do and all that you contribute to our community through your show. It
Well,
is a big
thank you.
deal and it does matter. And stop acting like isn't it something amazing, because it is. And it's a big deal for me to be on your show. So I appreciate you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Well, as always, guys, we'll be doing the video and audio thing on this. So you can either choose to listen to us or you can choose to watch
Count the
us.
pops.
And the pops. It's a lot more exciting to watch us than to listen to us on this one, folks. But as always, I appreciate everybody listening, and that's it for tonight. And as always, I will see you on the trail.